Welcome to this week's version of Nickels and Dimes, our weekly video series. Well, you might be wondering if you're interviewing for a new advisor or if you've been working with an advisor for many years, you might be wondering, what questions do I ask an advisor? I'm not really sure. So today we're going to jump into 5 questions that I think are ideal to ask your advisor. This is not an all-inclusive list, of course, because there are many other questions you can ask, but these are 5 of the ones that I thought would be of topic today. And by the way, if you find value in this video, if you see this video on Facebook or LinkedIn, or if you get it in an email, go ahead and share it or forward it to a friend. So let's jump in and explore 5 questions to ask your advisor. Number 1, what services do you provide? You might think that's a basic question. You might think you know the answer, but in my mind, you want to be working with a holistic advisor. That is, someone who handles, and this is a lot of areas of planning that many comprehensive advisors will cover. Because in my opinion, our job is really to make the complex simple. Of course, there are a lot of areas of financial planning, from investment to retirement planning, to cash flow and budgeting and tax planning. But you want to be clear, what services does the advisor provide? Because again, if you're looking specifically for an investment advisor, just make sure you're working with someone who specializes in investment planning. If you're looking for someone to help put together a retirement analysis to give you an idea of when you could retire, how much money you need to retire, we'll talk about that a little later in this video, you're probably not going to just want to work with an investment advisor. You're going to want to work with a financial planning advisor who helps address areas like that. What services do you provide? That should be a very simple question. You should get a very basic answer back with some clarity. The second question would be, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, who is your typical client? Do you specialize, for example, in working with corporate executives? Or maybe you deal primarily with retirees? Or do you work with business owners or high net worth clients? Or maybe you address concerns and address financial planning or investments or whatever their service is for doctors or lawyers. Are you dealing with someone who specializes in a certain area? A specific question to ask your advisor, who is your typical client? The third question you would ask your advisor is, are you a fiduciary? Now, what's a fiduciary? A fiduciary is a financial professional that's legally obligated to act in the best interests of their clients. That means prioritizing clients' needs above their own, even if it means recommending products that don't yield the highest commission for their advisor. And they're held to a higher standard of care than other financial advisors who might be only required to make recommendations based on suitability or suitable products. Now, keep in mind, fiduciaries must be transparent about the compensation and any other potential conflicts of interest. And I would venture to say that most advisors are not fiduciaries. In fact, most advisors, in my experience for doing this well over 25 years, most advisors are really financial salespeople. Doesn't mean they're bad people, doesn't mean they're not doing the best they can, but many of them are soliciting or selling financial products like annuities or mutual funds or whatever the case may be. Now, in a perfect world, a fiduciary advisor, again, puts his interests second, your interests as a client first, and their primary goal is getting clarity on what you're trying to accomplish and making independent, non-biased recommendations to help you accomplish your goals. Ask your advisor if they are a fiduciary. Again, if they're not a fiduciary, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, doesn't mean they're doing a bad job. But again, I think this would be something that's ideal. The fourth question you want to ask is, how much money do I need to retire? If you're dealing specifically with a investment specialist, meaning someone who invests, manage money, these type of things, they might not be a retirement planning advisor. So your advisor should, in my opinion, be able to give you an estimate and then explain how he or she arrived at that number. Meaning they would ideally put together something like this. This is a cash flow forecast that, as an example, would give you an idea of how long your money is going to last given certain scenarios. So for example, in this scenario, that person has accumulated around $7 million. So in this example, we're projecting when Social Security might start. We're also projecting when they might receive an inheritance. We're also projecting when they might start taking required minimum distributions and assumptive inflation, expenses, and portfolio growth rate. We could also assume different scenarios. Well, what if I spent, as an example, an extra $100,000 a year just on vacation? So a retirement advisor or someone who's doing holistic planning for clients is going to be able to answer the question, how much money do I need to retire? A simple and easy way to do this is to run a financial forecast or financial timeline like we just saw. And the fifth and last question, something you could ask your advisor, is do you have any formal complaints or disciplinary action? We all know that advisors sometimes don't make the most ideal recommendations, and sometimes folks sue or file a formal complaint. And one way to determine if your advisor has had a formal complaint is going through FINRA. That's brokercheck.finra.org. And again, it shows if your advisor has complaints, disciplinary action, employment history, licenses, and exams. So it gives you essentially the history of the advisor. And it also will give you clarity if your advisor is technically a broker or advisor that is registered with FINRA. Now, most fiduciary advisors work with the SEC, not FINRA, so you could check those folks out as well, advisorinfo.sec.gov. And it shows some things like Form ADV filings, business details, and of course, disciplinary disclosures. If your advisor is an investment advisor, usually a fee-only or fee-based advisor, then they would be under this umbrella, that is the SEC umbrella. And lastly, state securities regulators. Find your state's regulator at nasaa.org, and you will use this if your advisor is only state registered, or maybe you're dealing specifically with an insurance person. So again, FINRA.org, SEC website, or as mentioned, this nasaa.org website. 5 questions, let's just review them real quick just to summarize. What services do you provide? Who is your typical client? Are you a fiduciary? How much money do I need to retire? And again, do you have any disciplinary or formal complaints? So again, here's a list of 5. Again, it's not an all-inclusive list. Certainly there's many more questions you could ask. In fact, what comes to mind is maybe you want to go on ChatGPT, or maybe if you use Grok, that's XAI's technology, you can go ahead and jump in and ask probably hundreds of questions to your advisor. But I wanted to simplify this for you and give you an idea of what that might look like if you did want to do this. And if you found value in this video, if you get it on social media, go ahead and share it. Or if you get it in an email, as I mentioned, go ahead and forward that email. And if you would like a second opinion on your portfolio or financial situation, you can go on our website at nicholswealth.com. This request an appointment tab, fill out the information, and one of our advisors will reach out to answer your questions. In fact, you can ask us these 5 questions and we would absolutely welcome them. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.